Hey, Donnie Woodard here with Remax Energy Real Estate right here in Mustang, Oklahoma, Yukon, Oklahoma. No one sells more real estate than me specifically in this area, resell homes, and even further, Remax Energy by far blows everyone away. Today, I want to get into a topic that was a really big deal 2 years ago, almost exactly 2 years ago, that shook the real estate world. It got realtors out of the business. Man, we talked about it a lot. A lot of people were frightened of it. Buyers, sellers, everyone. It was a huge topic. We don't talk about it as much anymore, but it's the buyer-broker agreement. A lot of people refer to it as the BBA. I'm going to give my thoughts on the BBA after 2 years of working through it with it here in Mustang and Yukon and the Oklahoma City metro area. We're going to talk about what has come of it, how it's helped hurt sellers, how it's helped hurt buyers, realtors, all that good stuff. So what is the BBA? The BBA, the buyer broker agreement, it is an agreement between a buyer, a real estate buyer, someone who's looking to buy a house or duplex, whatever, and a realtor, an agent. So it creates an agreement that says, hey, I'm working with this buyer, this is my client. The buyer says, hey, this is my realtor, I'm agreeing to work exclusively with them. It actually is like a rule, a law. If as a realtor I get caught showing you houses without having this agreement signed, I think it's a $2,500 fine that can come out of it to me. Now, how is that policed? That's a different story. I think someone would probably have to get mad and tell on you if you weren't doing it, but nonetheless, you can get fined for it. It is a rule, it is a law, it is there. But it's an agreement between a buyer and a realtor. Things in the agreement it's transparency. How much am I, as your realtor, buyer's agent, getting paid? Who's paying me? The services that we provide. All those good things. So why was the BBA created in the first place? So I'm not gonna get too much into this part of it. Number one, I haven't studied this part of it a whole lot because it really doesn't matter to me because the BBA is here and it's a thing. So, but I believe it was on the East Coast somewhere. There was a lawsuit. A seller, I believe, one seller filed a lawsuit because somehow they weren't told, the agent didn't do a good job of explaining it to them. They didn't read the listing agreement probably, or the contract, but they didn't understand or they didn't like that they had to pay a buyer's agent's commission. They disagreed with it. So they filed this lawsuit. I don't know if paperwork wasn't done right or whatever, but a whole bunch of people got on board. It became this class action lawsuit. Out of that came this BBA, this nationwide buyer broker agreement. It is created to create transparency is what it was created. I'm just going to read this to you. The lawsuits argued that the old system where listing agents advertised buyer agent compensation offers on MLS limited competition and kept commissions artificially high. It's interesting because we'll talk about this a little bit more, but sellers are actually paying more in commission now than they did before. It's actually gone up from this. So from my perspective, this is just my opinion, really what it's done is just kind of complicated things a little bit and made more paperwork and has actually kind of hurt sellers in the long run, which I may be crazy or biased here, but I feel like that's what most lawsuits end up doing. And a lot of attorneys got paid a lot of money. So some of my personal thoughts on the BBA after selling houses here in our area, Mustang, Yukon, after 2 years. Personally, I think that as a realtor, I like it. I actually like it because I know how much I'm getting paid now whenever I take on a client as a buyer. Before, a seller, a listing agent, they would put into the MLS how much compensation they're offering to a realtor to bring a buyer. That was right there. That was transparent. Don't ask me how we're more transparent now. That's my biggest complaint, actually, is that there's nowhere that we can put that now. So to me, the less information you give out there, the worse. So I don't know why was taken away. I think that's just a cop-out from like the MLS and stuff to like just have zero thing to do with it so they don't get sued. I don't really know that. That's just my thoughts. But I like it because I know how much I'm going to get paid. Because before, if a listing agent or a seller just offered 2% without a buyer broker agreement, I accepted 2%. That's what, even though I didn't necessarily agree with it, but that's the way it was. It creates loyalty to me, the realtor. Buyers, sometimes you'd work with buyers, and especially when you're new as a realtor, you're not real good at having those conversations with people, or you're scared to have those conversations with people. A lot of people get offended, like when I ask questions and stuff. I'm asking questions to help you. Like, the more I know about you, the more I can help you. A lot of people don't realize that. They think you're asking questions, and it's an art as a realtor to be able to ask questions and not come off as aggressive or offensive or anything like that. So you learn that over time. And if people do get offended, then maybe we're just not a good fit. I don't know. But you ask questions to help people. The best realtors ask the best questions to fully fulfill what the buyer's goals are, seller's goals are. So that's why we do it. But going back, it creates loyalty to me. We don't have buyers just going out there behind your back with other agents looking at homes, and then they're calling you looking at homes and all that good stuff. That's why it hurts the non-professional agent, because they're just going to run. They were running around showing homes. That's why a bunch of them got out. They can't just do that anymore. And that goes back to my next point, to why I personally like it. It got out of the industry a bunch of part-time agents, a bunch of agents that aren't as professional, and it created professionalism in our industry. And I think going forward, it will more and more over time. Because there's so many people, there's so many realtors. I think there's a stat, and I could be crazy. Probably should look it up before I actually say it, but something like 72% of realtors nationwide have not sold a home this year. That blows my mind. Imagine being a seller and you don't ask that question, and your house is sitting on the market, and then you find out your agent hasn't sold a house in 18 months. I think I would be pretty ticked off if I was that seller, knowing that I hired an agent that they don't know what's going on. You can't not sell a home in 18 months and know what's going on in the market. This is another stat. It's something like 92% of sellers hire the first agent that walks through their door. You need to interview your agents. You need to find out, do you know this area? How well do you know this area? How long have you been selling real estate in this area? But that's beside the point. So I do like that it has gotten rid of a bunch of those realtors, and I think it will continue to do so. And I think that's good for everyone, for the consumer and the real estate industry as a whole. Here's another thing why I like it as a realtor. It helps, it gives you a reason, it gives a buyer a reason to have a buyer's consultation. You would be amazed at how many realtors just show up to houses and show people homes, and they never sit down with the person. They never have a conversation with what their true goals are, what it is that they're truly trying to do. And here's the thing is, a lot of buyers don't want to do that. They don't realize that they need to do that. They just want to run around and look at homes, and they don't ever, them or the realtor, don't ever actually sit down to formulate a plan on how to accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish. So this, now that you have to sign a BBA, gives that buyer a reason, gives that realtor a reason to ask, to sit down and to talk about this BBA, buying a house, the process. Most buyers, first-time buyers, they don't want to do that. You would be amazed from a realtor's perspective sometimes at how hard it is to get a first-time home buyer to sit down and talk to you about the process. You've never bought a home before. You're going to go buy a $350,000 home and you don't have the time to sit down with someone and talk about the process and go over a contract before you actually sign a contract, that blows my mind. That's crazy. And there's realtors out there that aren't even doing that with people. But now that we have this BBA, it's become easier to sit down with people and to give people a reason like, hey, you need to sit down. We have to do this because I'm not going to get fined $2,500. The thing that I don't like about it, I mentioned this just a second ago, is that there's actually less information from like in the MLS. So like I said before, the listing agent would put, we're offering this amount of compensation, and it is what it is. And now that information isn't given. So what has come from this in 2 years from a seller's perspective? Okay, I mentioned before that sellers are actually paying more in commissions now than they did before. So in that regard, it has actually hurt sellers. And here's why. I can tell you exactly why. This is opinion, but I think I'm right. So in that buyer broker agreement, it says, okay, pretend you're a buyer, I'm the agent. You sign this, I am getting paid 3% to help you buy a home. It says in there, in so many words, you are, as a buyer, are responsible for paying me 3% to buy this home. On the next page, there's verbiage in there that says, if the seller is offering 3%, then you don't have to pay anything. That seller's compensation that they're offering or that they're paying takes credit over what you're supposed to pay. It also says that if that seller is only paying 2.5% commission, then you as a buyer will pay that extra 0.5%. Now, agent can say, okay, I'll just accept 2.5% or whatever. Now that happens quite a bit. I even do it every once in a while, depending on, so many things. But now that it says how much I, as a buyer's agent, am getting paid, that's it. That's what I'm getting paid. So someone's paying that. So if, as a seller, you're saying, no, I refuse to pay any more than 2%, 2.5%, we'll stick with 2.5% because that's what we were talking about. I refuse to pay any more than 2.5%. So who's going to pay that extra 0.5%? It becomes the buyer. And now they're just going to oftentimes, they will just reflect that 0.5% on their offer. So they're going to, okay, if your offer, for easy math, $100,000, you're not paying that extra 0.5%. Now I'm going to offer you $99,000 or whatever that ends up being. So you're still usually paying it. It's just in a different form. Or I'm going to ask for this amount of closing costs. Or there's also creative ways. So like if that buyer is also selling a house, then you can sell it for 3.5% instead of 3%. There's things you can do, but it says what that realtor is getting paid and someone's paying it. So from that perspective, that's why the commission has gone up, because now it's not really negotiated as much as they think it is, or it was intended to do, or as people think it is. From a buyer's perspective, I'm going to go back on the buyer's console. I like this from a buyer's perspective. This is kind of a weird place to put that I like it because I don't think buyers like it, but it's best for buyers. I just don't think that buyers realize it's best for buyers. But it makes you have a buyer's consultation, and that is best for you. Now, if you sit down with the realtor and you don't think that's best for you or whatever, you didn't like the conversation, then that's your chance to meet that realtor, not sign it, and go interview another realtor. You need to sit down and make a plan. I heard this whenever I was young, and I've always remembered it. It was actually on the PE wall in elementary school. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. If you do not formulate a plan to get something done, then you're just winging it. And that's not the best thing to do as a buyer, especially if you have a house to sell. A lot of people, a lot of the public, I try to get people to sit down with me a year before they're ready to sell. A lot of people, they will just scour Zillow. Oh, they find a home that they really, really like. Boom, we got to list our house. We got to put an offer on this house. And it's chaotic right from the start, and it's hard to catch up. Whereas if you sit down with someone and you make a plan and you get prepared right from the beginning, you can control a lot more than if you're just running around chaotic. So from that perspective, it is a good thing for buyers. Buyers may have to pay more now. So like I said, it says that I'm getting paid this much. So if a seller refuses to offer this much, then now a buyer's gonna have to pay more. What we'll do, like, it's hard for them to sign a BBA. So yeah, you gotta sign a BBA to look at a house. If you're new to the area, you don't know your realtor, you're having to sign that to get into the house, and you don't even know that person. It's hard for a buyer to sign an agreement with someone and they've never met that person. Now there's things that you can do. You can sign an agreement to just look at this one single house, no obligations or nothing. I'm just letting you let me into this house, and then after that you're done. So you can do that. A lot of people are reluctant because they don't like signing contracts, and I don't blame them one single bit. So from that perspective, it's really difficult for buyers. And if you bought homes in the past, you've never had to do that before, so it's new to you. And if you've never heard of this lawsuit, you're not in the real estate world, you kind of think the realtor's making it up, or it's not true, or those kinds of things. So, and here's something I'm going to forecast. I think that now we've been in this market for this thing has been a thing for 2 years. And in these 2 years, someone may tell you different. I think it's been a buyer's market for pretty much these 2 years, especially here in Mustang and Yukon, when there's so many new builds and these builders are offering a lot of incentives and sellers are competing against those builders. But whenever it flips and it becomes a seller's market again, I predict that it's going to be hard on buyers and buyers agents, because they may just say, I'm only paying 1% and that's it. If you want it, then you can buy it. If not, I'm gonna go sell it to someone else. And that agent is gonna have to decide if their value is worth that extra percentage. That buyer is gonna have to decide if their agent's value is worth that percentage. And I'm interested to see what's gonna happen whenever that comes. So anyway, again, my name is Donnie Woodard. I am right here in Mustang and Yukon. If you watched this whole video, I appreciate you. Like and subscribe to my channel. It helps me out a lot. I put out these educational videos to help people in this world, because I know that a lot of people, you buy houses 4 times in your entire life, and you don't keep up with it like people that are in the industry. So it helps people, and I get a lot of good feedback from them. Anyway, I appreciate your time. If you need anything at all, feel free to holler at me.